and they want to envision, forcibly putting a .44 Magnum in her hands. Now, I told that story out in East Texas, and in the back of the room was a Mrs. Smith in a walker, and she said, "I'll take it and I'll hit what I aim at." But nobody is talking about forcing teachers who don't feel comfortable to carry. We're talking about there are a lot of teachers who are former military, who are former law enforcement, who have training, who are perfectly capable of using a firearm, could make our schools safer. There's also a lot we can do on infrastructure, things like shrinking the number of entrances to a school. You think about it, you go to a bank, you go to a courthouse, there's usually 1 or 2 entrances, they're not 10 or 20, and that way you funnel everyone to where law enforcement is so that you can stop an attacker at one place. So there are a lot of steps we can do, and I'll tell you, I've been leading the fight in the Senate to implement those steps. Going back to my first year in the Senate, 2013, I introduced legislation to provide $300 million in more funding to improve school safety. I think we need to focus on making schools safer and also targeting bad guys and taking guns out of the hands of criminals. Yes, sir?
What more can we expect from you in your next term to improve our education system? It's failing. You've led the way in school choice. What more can we expect?
Okay, so great question, which is what can y'all expect on education from me? Let me say, first of all, education, I think, is foundational to everything else we do. How many teachers are here today? Let me say thank you to all the teachers who When it comes to education, in my family, and I suspect in many of your families, education has been the gateway to the American dream. It's how you have a chance to achieve success and opportunity and to provide for your family. And if you think about every other societal problem we've got, whether it's poverty, whether it's crime, whether it's drug abuse, whether it's healthcare issues, if kids don't get an education, we know those problems are all much, much more likely. Whereas if kids do get an education, the odds are they'll be much better prepared to combat and deal with those challenges. So what should we do in education? I'd say 2 things. Number 1, I think the federal government should stay the heck out of education and leave it to the states and the local jurisdictions. Common Core is wrong. And listen, the people of Lubbock, y'all know what your kids need, and no one would expect the schools in Lubbock to teach the exact same things that they're teaching in New York City. They're different communities, different needs, different challenges, and people in Lubbock shouldn't be dictating to New York what they teach, and they shouldn't be dictating to us, and nobody should be governed by unelected bureaucrats in a windowless room in Washington, D.C. I will say, secondly, you made reference to school choice. I am a passionate defender of school choice. I think school choice is the civil rights issue of the 21st century. And listen, I think every child in America should have a right to access a quality education, regardless of your race, regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of your wealth, regardless of your zip code. Empowering kids, giving kids more choice. And I'll tell you, one of the legislative achievements that I'm most proud of my tenure in the Senate is last December when we were passing the tax bill. I had an amendment that became the only amendment adopted on the Senate floor that added anything to the tax bill. And what it did, it concerned college 529 savings plans. Now, 529 savings plans are immensely popular. About 18 million Americans use them. They're tax advantage accounts whereby parents and grandparents can save to help pay for the college expenses for your kids and grandkids. Now, the amendment I introduced took 529 savings plans. You can still use them for college, but it now expanded them where you can also use them for K through 12 education. You can use them for public school, private school, religious school, parochial school, your choice, up to $10,000 per child per year to invest in the education of your kids. That amendment passed on the floor of the Senate 50-50 with a perfectly divided Senate. Vice President Pence had to come down to the Senate floor at 1 in the morning and break the tie. And with that, we passed the most significant and far-reaching federal school choice legislation that has ever passed. We should be empowering kids and parents, and doing that is going to improve the public school system and improve the quality of education for everybody.
I'll tell you all that I introduced myself to him when he came by and said, "Fellow Eskimo, eh?" The thing is, so I had to come here and meet a fellow Canadian. Now then, you're in a different situation from Beta 01. He does not have C-24 tied around his, wrapped around his axles, and Lubbock is wrapped around the axles of New York.